Oh, and tell your sister she looks wonderful.
I haven't seen her yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Her
Jen looks.
face. Her face. She took a picture. She posted it. Her
Yeah,
face.
and you can't really even see her body. She looks man, it's
Well, she
crazy.
need to tell her to get out of that old thought and take some body pictures so we can see.
Oh,
Yes,
you know what?
she's scared
I
to
took a
take body
picture
pictures.
yesterday in the mirror with my underwear and my bra on, and I was like, I never take pictures, but I was just like, I was just walking by the mirror. I was like, let me just take this picture. A couple of weeks ago, just in my head, and I was like, as much as I look at myself now at 45, as much as I look at myself, I realize that for about 10 years, I never looked at myself. Never.
That's the thing.
I never looked at myself. I would get up, take a bath, take a shower, but I never looked at myself without clothes on, even with clothes on. I just put clothes on. If they fit, they fit, they didn't. I never looked at myself, and like I was like, what was I going through? Like, how did I can't tell you how I felt at the time, but I was just wondering, like, how did I feel that I didn't look at myself? Like I never thought about what I look. I think I really think that I felt unworthy. Like I think this was a couple years after I had Lola, and I was like I had to have felt like, nobody wants to see that. Hell, if I don't want to see it, nobody else wants to see it. Like I don't know, but it was just like weird. As much as I look at myself now, I did not look at myself at all.
That's good.
At all. Now with all the bumps and bruises and whatever else, I don't give a shit. You gonna see this,
But
That's how I feel about putting my bikini on.
exactly.
And will. And will.
How I feel. And I used to be like that. Be like, there's no way.
Fupa just smiling.
But now, but if I put that
Fupa
thing,
just
I
be
don't care.
smiling.
Titties can touch my
And I
belly
don't care.
button. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about
Listen,
nothing.
we took our a couple years ago, probably like in the middle of the pandemic, right? No, right when the pandemic started or whatever. We went on a family trip and we went to the beach. And I took two-piece bikinis. And I was like, they were like, you gonna wear that? I said, listen, everybody out here can see that my ass is fat when I walk out here with my clothes on. I'm not about to be out here fat and hot on this beach. So I took off, I had a little wrap on the bottom. I took that wrap off and laid it down. So I couldn't even see over my shoulder. I could see the shadow of my ass over my shoulder. So I know everybody at Corona Del Mar saw it too, and I didn't give a damn.
My butt didn't leave no shadow, but I was out there doing what I was doing. My fupa probably was standing out more than my butt, but that's not the point. I told you the fupa was smiling like this.
Girl, listen.
Well, on my cruise last year, right after I had that surgery, but I had my literally bathing suit was like a curve, like cutouts all the way around and everything. But I was up the way I was at that beach, like
so now that
I was the finest thing that.
So now that your body has changed, like when is your next vacation? Because I know you going.
This summer, but you do kind of suffer with body dysmorphia, but maybe because I'm just now at a stage in my life where I be like, I don't really I don't care. Like, what nobody thinks, what nobody feels. And then I'm like, okay, Jackie, dang, you was unhappy with this. Now you're unhappy with that. Now you're unhappy. I mean, when are you going to just be happy with what you're getting? So now I'm just like, hey, I don't have to I'm not going to go get no BBL. I'm not going to do none of that.
When you hit that point in your age, I don't know if it's your age or experience. I don't know what it is. Definitely my late 30s. It's like, I don't care. Like, really, I don't care.
I think we hit a sense of, I think at a certain point, whatever that is, if it's age, if it's experience, whatever it is, I think we finally realized like your own personal power. You know what I mean? Like you've been existing in a world, being who you are, looking how you look for however long.
Looking how you look.
Looking how you looking. And you realize that you have never missed an opportunity.
No, maybe that's what it is. Because I realized that my weight never stopped nothing.
from anything.
All these years, I just really had to think about this. Was literally a couple of months ago. I was like, God, for years, I was like, I'm so disgusted, I'm so ugly. And I never took into accountability that it stopped no one
Nobody.
or nothing. So
Nobody.
why was I tripping?
Girl,
So
like when that
don't care.
period where I didn't look at
Who's the
myself
Lord?
or was feeling unworthy, I moved after that. I moved to Texas. And Texas is, when you move to the South, it's a whole nother world. So I
And
moved
what I said,
here and all of a sudden, I'm getting like this attention. I was like, what is your problem? Like, like I never, I wasn't thinking that that dude was looking at me or trying to talk to me or whatever. And then I figured it out and I was like, you know what? If they see it, I'm gonna let them see what they see. I'm not gonna worry about what I see.
Nope.
I'm gonna let them enjoy what they see. And that's it. And then
which
and
I
then
believe
on
I
top of that,
told
get your
you.
confidence.
When I seen you, I was like, oh, baby, I know they all over you with this ass.
Get that Anita Baker here.
She was like, yeah, it's a little different. I'm like, babe, I know they all over you with this booty. You have
Brandy,
got
you're
me
not
up
gonna
crazy.
sit here and talk about my
Her
hair
booty.
today. We're not gonna do this on this show today.
What
Talking
she
about my
say?
hair.
With
Okay.
that Anita Baker hair.
Yes.
I
Fresh
apologize.
tight curls because I gotta go to the office tomorrow. So listen,
No.
Nita's back. So, she got the long sister locks now. So we just gonna bring back her
Oh, sure do.
her 1988. We're gonna bring back her 1988 vibe.
Sorry.
All right, y'all. We can go ahead and actually invite the folks in after a little private conversation. So this is episode 96 of an ongoing saga of us talking shit to each other about crime, current events, and whatever else is going on in our life at the time. So thank you guys for joining us and joining in on the conversation for episode 96 of Black Coffee and Crime. So for those who are new, basically we give our opinion on crimes. We are not law enforcement professionals. We're not investigators, none of that. We just people that like to talk about crime and what we think about it. So we didn't investigate this besides reading up on this. And so if we're giving our opinion, that's exactly what it is. So if we say we think somebody did it, we're just doing that, just thinking. We're speculating. Don't hold us to it. Don't take this to the court. Don't even put that in your comments that we might be wrong. Okay. Just hold that thought. But if you do have any constructive criticism, anything you want to say, that's respectful. Go ahead, leave it on Instagram, leave it on Facebook, email us at info@blackcoffee.com, or like I said, Facebook and Instagram, which is Black Coffee Crime. Now, one of the comments I will say that we got, this was on an old episode 44, and this was about Serenity Richardson. If you guys recall, we did this episode because we saw some footage on YouTube of these criminals who had like ridiculous reactions to their sentences. Yeah. And this little girl, I think she was 3 or 4 at the time that she was killed. She was killed by friends of her mom's or acquaintances of her mom, and they brutalized this baby. Well, when they got their sentences, they just wilded out. I mean, they were hollering and screaming or whatever. So we were talking more about their reaction more than, really going into the baby. But one of the comments was kind of harsh, but I kind of get it. One of the recent comments was, I blame the child's mother as well. How in the blank you send your child states away because you're moving, she needs to be locked up too. And when I first read that comment, I was like, ooh, that's rough. Because I don't think that this mother, Serenity's mother, or a lot of mothers in situations like this are thinking that the person I'm leaving my child in care of is going to do something like this. You know what I mean? Some of them, might be on some other type shit, but this was just one of the rough rougher comments that we got. It wasn't necessarily directed towards us, but just the story in general. So yeah, these are the kind of comments that we get. We welcome comments no matter what they are, but again, keep them respectful. But that was someone's opinion, just like we give our opinion. But incidentally, we are going to be talking about child abduction and a missing child who is still missing after almost 8 years. So in this case, the parents are pretty iffy on this case. Before we get started on that, though, I know we've been talking about our lives for a second, but any current stories or anything in the news that y'all want to, talk about real quick before we start talking about Deorr?
Because Deorr's the whole that whole story. Yeah.
All right. So we are going to talk about Deorr Kunz Jr., who was a 2-year-old that came up missing, vanished, seemingly into thin air in summer of 2015 in Idaho. There were 4 people present besides the baby, and none of them saw anything. And when I say this boy has vanished into thin air, there were almost 0 traces of him even being at the campsite in the first place. So it's a lot of mystery and intrigue. So basically, he goes missing July 10th, 2015. He goes on a camping trip to a place called Timber Creek Camp in Deorr, Idaho, with his mother, mother Jessica, father Vernal, his great-grandfather Bob, and Bob's acquaintance, friend, whatever, Isaac. Why Isaac was there, who Isaac is So
well, he was the grandfather's friend that sometimes would go with him on adventures. You see, Grandpa wasn't doing too well.
Right. So he might have just been a helper or caretaker.
He was like his little friend. They probably were interested in the same type of stuff. Basically, that's what it seemed to me that Isaac was.
Yeah. They go up to Timber Creek on the 9th, on July 9th. Supposedly the night before, they went to Isaac's house to pick him up. There were 2 trucks, and they go to pick him up. They go to the camp. Now, listen to this. This is a planned trip. So they go up on the 9th. The baby goes missing on the 10th. So they get there right around sunset. So they're able to partially set up their camp. The next day, the parents, Vernal and Jessica, say that they drive 30 minutes back into town to go get snacks. Then they come back. Because the timeline is so in one story, the first time I heard this years and years ago was that they went early in the morning to the general store, which was about a half hour away. And then they come back and they're walking around the camp. They leave the baby with Bob, which is Jessica's grandfather. Vernal and Jessica go exploring around.
To the
creek. Then they come back and Bob is confused or whatever, and he says he can't find the baby. He says he took him to the little shoreline or whatever, which is like 400 feet, 50 yards away from where their camp was. So they would have been able to easily see where their camp was. He says he turned around, he thought the baby was behind him, and then the baby's gone. About an hour after that, Jessica and Vernal have 2 separate phone calls where they're both calling 911. I don't know if you guys have heard the tape with Jessica. She seems
too calm,
really damn calm,
real calm.
That your 2-year-old has been missing at a campground for an hour.
She's very calm.
She's like, when the lady was like, well, how tall is he? I don't know. He's 3. Man.
Well, he was 2, almost 3.
Yeah.
She sounded like that she was talking about her favorite sweater that she lost, describing it to see if it's in the lost and found.
And like, since there were two, like you could hear that Vernal was on another call. Even the 911 operator asked her, like, did your husband call too? Because she's like, are you there? Are you still there? Like, she's not forthcoming with the information. Even when she first calls, she's really calm. She's like, oh, my son is missing. I know she described where she was before she said why she called.
But didn't Vernal say that he got in his truck and went down further to get a better signal so that they weren't together because he left?
He said that, but how, if you did that, then how were you guys at the same place? How did they hear you on that 911 call if you drove away to get a better signal?
That's what Vernal said. He said that he went to drive down and get a better signal. But how far was she that she went? How far did she go to get a better signal?
Right. And those are part of all the inconsistencies that there's a website called justiceforbabydeorr.com. Clearly, it's not a website funded by the parents, because they have like a PDF of like 2 to 3 pages of inconsistencies in their stories.
This is the problem I have with them. First of all, Grandpa doesn't look like he could get out of his lawn chair by himself. He looks like somebody had to help him drag his oxygen. It don't look like he could drag his oxygen and walk at the same time.
Right.
Why would you leave? We all had kids. We know how a 2-year-old is in the house, let alone how kids act when they're outside. They get excited. They want to explore. Like, why would you leave him in care of Grandpa? And 2, they kept talking about his cowboy boots when she was describing what he had on, how they were too big. Where were his footprints? I've never heard anybody talk about his footprints leading somewhere. If he supposedly, and they said that's kind of a insulated area, camping area. Where were his footprints of his big boots? Because if the boots are big, that means he's stepping harder because they're big.
Right. And he's probably dragging his feet a little bit. You know, one of the things that the grandfather's friend Isaac, in his account, was that he was acting like a normal 2-year-old. He was kind of all over the place, like you said, really excited. And that at one point there was a campfire and he was kind of playing around it. And Vernal, the father, kind of scolded him a little bit, but he's like, he just kept doing the same thing because he's 2. Ironically, Isaac, who is the outlier here, is the only person's story who has stayed consistent for the last 8 years. He has never told a different story. But anyway, the baby goes missing. Now, Vernal and Jessica said that although Bob had known Isaac for about 5 years, they had never met him before. So back to your question, Brandy, why would you leave the baby with a grandfather who is on oxygen and a man that you've never met before?
And thought that was weird. So from your words, you thought he was weird.
Yeah.
And he was drinking. This is coming from Jessica. She said he was drinking. So you're leaving your child around a person that is unknown to you prior to you picking him up the night before, and with your elderly, sickly grandfather who had cancer. So you guys could go fishing when there's a creek right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand. And then also too, this just drives me crazy. You guys go to the store to get snacks a half hour away. There's no surveillance of the baby there's no footage of the baby videos. No one recalls seeing this child in a store. Now, I don't know if y'all have 2-year-olds, y'all had 2-year-olds, nieces, nephews, and your kids. You have to restrain a 2-year-old inside of a store. That baby gonna grab everything.
Especially an excited 2-year-old.
So in a small country store, nobody saw this baby. No one recalls seeing the child but the 4 people who were at the campsite. And on top of that, if this trip was planned,
Nobody knew about it.
why y'all had to go get snacks? Why'd y'all have to pass the the place the first night? Because you went there, you were traveling in daylight to the place because it's about 30 minutes down the road. There's one road. So in the daylight, you pass this place on day one. And on day two in the morning, you go back to get snacks. You have a 2-year-old. You didn't have food for the baby?
But you remember a lot of the family members said that it was sudden. It was like it was something they didn't know about. It was like a sudden trip, like out of nowhere, like, oh, we're going here.
But
Like out of
they
nowhere.
said, oh, we're going to take grandpa because he doesn't have many more years ahead of him and he wasn't going to be before him long. And they was trying to take him back to a place where he used to camp or whatever. So that doesn't sound like a spur of the moment trip. If you said grandpa ain't going to be before us long, let's
Right.
go take him out to the camping site. And grandpa was like, okay, well, let's go get Isaac.
None of this,
Not
like,
playing.
there's so much wrong with, like, nothing connects. So they look for the baby. There are no traces of this child. Not in the woods surrounding. For 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they called off the search. After 2 weeks, they called up the search. One person that they interviewed, I was watching a video, he said he was local to the area and he was a part of the initial search. He said that the mood or the vibe after a few hours was like, mm-mm. And then, as time went on, they didn't call any additional law enforcement to look because they're like, he ain't here.
Not there.
There was no traces, not the boots, not the clothing, nothing of this child. How far is a 2-year-old going to get? So the parents are like, he was kidnapped. Y'all are in an isolated area. Who drove on this 1-lane road to kidnap the 2-year-old? And if the grandfather was right there, Isaac was there, and you guys weren't that far away, didn't you hear a car? Did you see anybody prior to that? Like, how did someone kidnap this child? And there's not even traces of a possible 5th person at the camp.
Have you tried to wrangle a kid when they're outside and they don't want to come in or they don't want you picking them up and they're doing their own thing? What they gonna do?
Holla.
Their little legs is like this. Right. And like, what direction was the person coming from? Were they like Namora, who came out of the water and surprised Shuri and Ramunda? Like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? They come out of the water.
They tried to go with the wild, he walked off thing. They don't know what happened. Then they start with this wild animal thing. But when they said they couldn't find any clothes or anything, then they jumped to somebody kidnapped him. We know somebody kidnapped him. And then after that, then they jumped to Isaac because he was a weirdo and supposedly was a sex offender, which he was not. He was falsely, they falsely claimed that he was a sex offender. So your story keeps changing. I would be like, no, I know that I didn't do anything to my child. If my child walked off, there's something out there. We're gonna search, and there, I wouldn't automatically go, oh, it was a wild animal. Oh, he was kidnapped.
Yeah.
In like, who kidnapped him? Where did they? That's the thing. Like, you guys are in a remote area. You're not at the mall. You're not at the local park. You are camping in Idaho with one road in and out. Y'all didn't hear gravel.
Nobody, nothing.
So if he kidnapped him, There was no prints or anything around the area. No, tire tracks, footprints, nothing around the area. There was no jacket. Like if I'm going to, a kid never be worried about a jacket or his boots falling off or whatever. Would they care about that kind of stuff?
Stop.
They would just snatch the kid and go.
Right. But even if they're snatching the kid and going,
Somebody
there would
gonna hear
have to be
something, see
two
something.
people. There would have to be two people to kidnap the baby because somebody has to keep the car running. Because like you said, you got to wrangle this baby. You got to wrangle the baby. I just don't, I don't understand.
And then considering how close Bob was, I mean, the child's gonna make some kind of noise. I'm not saying he wasn't that far. He could barely walk.
Right. He wouldn't have been able to do much, but at least he would have been able to shout.
A chaos, he would have heard some twigs. The kid wasn't that far from him, according to him. So
him or Isaac. Now, Isaac does say that he saw the child, that the child was definitely there. But it seems like everyone involved, Bob had passed away like in 2019. But the other three surviving people that were there, everyone seems to have a mental block, some sort of mental trauma response that has them forgetting the details of what happened. Isaac says he can't remember everything. Jessica says in response to the chaos, she might have forgotten some detail. How?
What's there to forget?
How?
I mean, no matter what, the storyline that they're choosing are all basic storylines. What is there to forget? There's nothing to forget. I mean, you literally have nothing. You have nothing to go for. You have
your
nothing.
Your 2-year-old is missing. I'm not forgetting anything.
There's nothing to forget.
There's two things that's different between Isaac may forget because it wasn't his responsibility. Right. That was someone else's responsibility. But if my kid goes missing, I know exactly to the T what I did, accounting for it, and I'm going to be running that back in my mind, thinking, why didn't I do this? Why didn't that? I'm going to know. I'm going to feel the guilt of why, I walked away for 5 minutes or not. Between that time, I did this, and that. You're going to run that in your mind so many times.
Yeah. Over and over again. And
I couldn't say, we're going to be searching all night, all day. We'll find my kid. I'm going to be hysterical. I'm going to be like, just not there. Not, can't focus. I'm going to try to retract every second, every moment, every minute from the second.
I'm writing it down.
We got to find my baby.
Everything. One of the things is, as far as them, their information and their memory loss or blocking things out, because that's what Jessica said, that they block things out. They fired, one private investigator, but one private investigator fired them. The first private investigator was like, you guys hired me under false pretenses. You're not cooperating with the police. You're not cooperating with me. And basically, I think you're lying. You're doing this because there was a lot of reward money coming up. There was apparently like a $20,000 reward. They didn't want this to go national, to put out the reward, a $20,000 reward, to say, hey, our baby is missing. If you have information that leads to his return, here's the reward. They didn't want this to go public. So he quit. I think his name was Vault. He quit. Then they hire a private investigator, Klein from Texas. He interviews them. He interviews everybody separately. He basically comes to the conclusion, this is their private investigator.
Immediately.
He's like, they did it.
Immediately. They did it. He was like, it ain't adding up. Y'all, it's y'all. He immediately.
He's interviewing, Brandy. I know you like interrogation. So he's interviewing Bob.
Yeah.
Bob is there with the oxygen and everything.
Good. Yeah.
And he's like, how well do you know Isaac? He's like, well, not really at all. He's like, do you trust him? Oh, sure don't. He's like, so basically he's asking questions and he's letting them dig themselves as deep as possible. And
did you see when Bob chuckled and then he peed on himself?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question is this. This is one of the questions.
Because the second investigator is one of my favorite people. Because way he
Yeah,
kicked me.
and he's back on the case. So they fired
Yes, he
him.
is.
And then an unknown family member rehired him.
Hired him. Yes.
Now, also, Vernal has hired a new this was like as of 2019, 2020. He hired a new investigator from out of North Carolina named Maybach or something like that. And they brought out cadaver dogs. Now, mind you, this is years after the vanishing. They bring out cadaver dogs. The dogs hit on something. One of his comments was, it's definitely human. We can't verify whether it was Deorr, but it was definitely human. He's like, it could be, something recent, or what did he say? An old Indian. Sir. If it's
Ain't no more left of him. He's
if it's
no
an
longer
old Indian, there will not be a smell for the dog to pick up if it is an ancient native.
The dog is just picking up the smell of decay.
That's it.
Decayed human flesh. So if it's an old Indian, like, are you talking about their actual age or someone who's been dead for the last 95 years? Like, what are you talking about, dude? It was just weird. Like, why would you say that? Like, it could be an old Indian. So is it a bone? Like, what was it? What did you find? Incidentally, they did find some bones. They sent them to the FBI. FBI comes back a couple months later, says, no, it's animal bone. So that was a wash. But get this. Vernal and Jess go back to their lives. They end up getting a divorce. And in the middle of that, they got evicted. You know what happens when you get evicted? Your shit goes outside.
Yep.
And when you do that, trash is public property. Mr. Klein went and picked up that public property. And do you know what they found? The jacket. The jacket that she said that the baby was wearing, they had it in their house the entire time. Also, there were toys that she described as him having with him on this trip. They found the toys. What?
All she had was a blanket, supposedly. He wouldn't leave without his blanket.
So he took his own blanket. The 2-year-old dragged his Linus blanket with him, with his boots, and y'all didn't find fibers of the blanket.
Well, he left his blanket. He left his blanket, but he took some of his toys. I don't know. It was, or was the blanket she was holding in the interview a fake blanket of what his blanket did look like? I don't know. But she said he wouldn't leave without his blanket. He wouldn't leave without his monkey. But I'm like, he's 2. What do you mean he won't leave?
He's 2 and he's playing in the thing. So
why that baby jacket at your crib? I don't care about none of that.
Did you buy another jacket? Did you buy
why is that camouflage jacket at your house?
Why?
Did she ever say? Did they ever ask her again?
No, they're not under arrest. That information has been forwarded to the proper authorities. But it's just funny that they're finding these things, like there's no trace. And
well, let's not forget that they failed every. I mean,
yes,
lie detector tests are not admissible in court, but they failed every single lie detector test, and their story kept changing over and over and over and over again. Yep. And like you said, the person who hasn't changed is Isaac, the weirdo, who supposedly was some kind of sexual deviant.
I have a question, and this is like, because I think Mr. Klein, the private investigator, says we know how, but he didn't explain how, because he got sued for defamation or whatever, but the judge threw it out. He said now they're worried about the why, and that's what I have written down. What motive did they have? Like, did they also what motive did they have? And was he even at the campsite alive, or did something happen to him prior to them coming?
I think Isaac saw him. If Isaac saw him, I believe he was there. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's why they went. They couldn't have Dad, Isaac, person they barely know in the car with a dead baby. And then Isaac say, what baby? There was no baby there. The baby was there, but they may have gone there with the intention of that. We know that they were in some kind of financial situation because they got evicted from their place. Did Deorr have a life insurance policy, or did someone have a life
but
insurance
they did raise money. They did raise money though. So, I mean, people have done it for less. So that's the thing, is that out of all, even with all these things not connecting and none of it making sense, you're like, what do you gain from if they did it? What do you gain from killing a 2-year-old?
And they were both young, early 20s.
Was it accidental? I mean, I don't know the why. I really couldn't come up with a why. What made you do this?
Some speculation.
I'm said that they definitely had something to do with it, whether it been intentional, unintentional, and hid it. Whatever the case may be, they definitely did it. And I'm sticking by that. But I don't know why they did it.
It's weird. It's weird.
Would you have? There's no background to say, okay, well, they've abused him prior times. There've been situations where CPS has had to step in, or a family saying, okay, well, they were like, I mean, there's nothing prior to that. It just happens.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe Brandy BW is right. It could be financially, and
Well, there's some speculation that just had 2 kids, but prior to Deorr. Okay. And those 2 kids were in the custody of her ex-husband. She says that it's because she had lost her job and it was best for the kids to be with him, but she never signed her rights away to the children. It's just that she's like, you could take care of them. But there's speculation that she didn't even want Deorr either.
Well, she got married only a couple weeks after her and old boy broke up.
She got married again.
Well, they said that they were fiancés, that they weren't married at the time. But the thing is, whether you're married to him or not, you did get married a couple weeks after. And even Isaac had something to say about that. Isaac was like, that's weird. The weird guy was like, who does that?
But, and I'm not saying that this is the case here, but there have been cases where a woman will get rid of her children because the new man doesn't want them. Case in point, Susan Smith, when she murdered her 2 boys in North Carolina. Is it North Carolina or South Carolina? But Susan,
Carolina.
Back in the early 90s, she had a whole nationwide panic because she said she was carjacked by 2 Black men. But it turned out that she was having an affair with her boss, and he didn't want those kids.
But so Vernal knew. What about Vernal though? Vernal is just as guilty.
Pretty creepy to me. Like in the interviews that he gives, I can't even describe what kind of vibe he's giving, but it's not of a grieving father. It is someone who has something to prove, because he's always saying pretty soon, and this was of course a couple years ago, pretty soon I'll be able to prove that we didn't do it. Well, why can't you do it now? Why can't you just say, I didn't do this, and this is why. This is how I know what happened to my son.
No, he was just talking a lot, period, from when they were looking for him. And he was just, it has to be this, it has to be that. Oh, if you're out there, son, such and such. I mean, he was just talking too much to me.
Which is a telltale a lot of the times that those be the parents. To do it.
I really wanted to, but I didn't have time, was to go and look for footage of parents who had done something to their kids, who had the crocodile. There's a documentary about crocodile tears. And these people analyze the facial features and reactions and things that people say when they're guilty of doing something, but they've got the crocodile tears. Like he killed his wife, but he's on TV.
Like Chris Watts.
Right. Casey Anthony. All, these people who go in front of the camera, who are not camera shy in the face of a tragedy. They've got a lot to say, but it doesn't ring true. And even when I first saw, it was a number of years ago that I first saw the story. And My suspicious ass mind, I was like, they did it. And this was years ago, and I was like, they did that. Because when y'all took the baby to the store and can't nobody remember the baby at the store, we can all remember babies. Because we used to laugh and smile at a baby in a minute. Nobody at that store remembered that baby, and I was like, because I thought when I first saw this, was that the baby, y'all took that baby up there, y'all took him to the store, but y'all didn't take him back to the campsite. That's what I thought initially, is that you took him to the campsite, and when y'all went down to that store, something happened with that baby before y'all left that campsite, and so he never made it back up. So the memories that Isaac has were the day before. Because they said that they went around 11 o'clock, around noon. But they also said they went in the morning. Isaac says that was like noon-ish when they came back. They said they went around 9.
And Isaac said they were walking, but Isaac was ahead of them, so he wasn't paying attention to them walking in the back.
Right.
He was in his own, I'm walking, whatever. So he was like, we were all walking, and he said, I can't remember because I was walking ahead, who exactly was behind me. We know Gramps was behind, because we know Gramps probably really need to be wheeled out there. Why they would have Gramps walking anywhere is beyond me.
With an oxygen tank. So that's part of my theory, is that Isaac remembers the baby, and they did take him up there. And when they set up camp, he was playing in the fire. He was acting like a 2-year-old. Maybe early that morning, before they went back to that store, I think they took that baby to the store, but they never brought him back to camp. Because if there's no trace of this child, no one remembers. You turn around, like it can happen to you in the mall. It can happen to you in the grocery store, where you lean down to get them pickles on the bottom and your baby go. In that type of a setting with wide open spaces, and you turn around, little Topher over there, Brick boy, come over here. I can see the top of your head. Brick, come back over here.
Even if he did
space, you might lose him in the fray. But that,
even if he did walk off and nobody saw him, the urgency is not there in your voice.
No.
Where's the urgency?
No. She was so absent-minded on the phone while the 911 operator's talking to her and asking her questions. And there's these long pauses where the operator is just kind of like, are you there? And then she's like, did your husband make a call too? Because you can hear someone else talking in the background asking questions. But there's no, like, and Jessica is like asking, like, when the 911 operator asks her, what does he have on, or how tall is he? She's off to the side talking to somebody else. Like she's asking them, like she's telling them what the 911 operator is saying and then needing an answer.
Let me ask you guys, if your child was missing, how long would you wait to call the police?
Immediately.
Now, we're talking about in this situation.
15, 20 minutes.
Less than that.
15, 20 minutes.
Freak out.
The moment that I don't see my kid and I'm looking around the immediate area and I don't see them, I'm calling.
Yeah, I was going to say,
well,
I
you
guess
came back from
accountability, running around trying to be like, okay, but
you walk to the creek, you come back because old ass Gramps is supposed to be watching them. You come back, you see Isaac, you see Gramps, you do not see your kid, and you.
Where's the baby? Where's the baby?
Where's my baby?
He's missing. What do you mean he's missing? When did you see him? Go look in the water. Like, go look.
I would have been
there.
I would have been trying to run down the hill to get signal.
Yes, running with the phone, looking for him on the phone, holding the phone. I mean, just everything.
You stay here and look. I'm gonna go call the police.
Yes.
And while I'm either running down the hill or driving down the hill, I'm looking. What do I see? I'm not waiting an hour.
Mm-mm.
I'm not waiting an hour. And one of the things that Vernal said was, because he was talking about people on social media and, the backlash that they're getting. He says, everyone says that they would do everything in their power in this type of a situation, but you don't know because you're not in the situation. He says something wrong. He said something along those lines. What do you mean everybody says that they would do everything?
You.
So you not? Because we can't understand because we're not in that situation?
Let me tell y'all what happened to me one time. My little girl was at my mom's house, right? Somehow she got out the front door. Now, it had to been within a maybe 5-10 minute range that my parents, we stayed in the same apartments, realized she was missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second my mama called and said, "Is Jamari up there?" I said, "Why would she be up here?" They said, "We can't find her." I didn't even hang the phone up. I didn't shut my door. I ran straight out the door, jumped off the steps, immediately ran down the street screaming Jamari. We went, my whole family went into panic mode. We called cops. It was just brutal. So being as a person that was in there, so what does he mean? My first instinct was, where is my kid? Matter of fact, we had somebody at the gate blocking off every car that came out the door because we checking everybody's car until we find my baby. Like, we can't rest until we find my baby. I can't breathe until I find my baby. And my mother, who is of older, could still remember every detail, every stain in a shirt, every stain on a sock, every slide and shoe. She remembered every detail to her. So what does he mean? I mean, immediately, that's your natural instinct, is to panic and wonder what's going on. Okay, what happened first?
I mean, I've lost Lola in the store.
I did that.
I've lost Lola in the store. And immediately my stomach dropped. Like, oh my God. Now, mind you, she's just literally just hauling ass through the house, laughing. I'm scared. I'm scared because Lola was like this big. Okay. And, I can't see her and she's just running. And I was panicking because I'm thinking like, oh my God, somebody gonna take this baby. I'm not gonna be able to get like all this stuff. There was one time I was in the store. Lola was still in the car seat. So I had the seat, in the thing. And I had a habit of keeping my hand on her when I would reach for something. This one particular time, she made maybe 7-8 months, something like that. One particular time, I took my hand off of her. And I went to get something off the shelf. And I turned around and this lady had my baby in her hand. She had picked my baby up out of the seat. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, because she's holding the baby, she's talking to the baby. And I'm like, oh my God. So after I get over the, holy shit, this lady has my baby, now it's a violent aggression. But, funny irony, it was her grandmother's sister who had grabbed the baby. But to her, this is my niece. But I didn't see her. She saw me. She saw the baby. She picked the baby up.
Oh, you already knew her?
Yeah, it's her, Lola's grandma's sister.
Okay.
But I didn't, all I saw was this Mexican lady with my baby. Okay. Short Mexican lady with my baby. And I didn't look at her because she looks just like Lola's grandma. I ain't know. All I saw was Mexican lady pick up my baby and I didn't know what to do. And her daughter just, she's like, hey. And I was like, Yesenia, your mom almost got 2 pieces. I am your mom. Like, I was like, and at the, after that, I was like, it was that relief that goes,
Oof.
And then I was just like, had I looked at the woman, I would have known she looks just like this baby. She looks just like Lola's grandma. And I saw her daughter there. But all of that in a moment. And again, that was me not touching the baby's leg when I went to reach for something on the shelf. And it happened that quick. So I get that this happened. So no blame to parents when stuff happens like this. But this is not that situation. There are 4 people known to this child at a campsite where there are no other campers. No other campers, no tire tracks, no footprints, no nothing.
I don't know where they put this baby at.
And I think Grandpa, he might not have known exactly what happened, but he knows it was this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. He may not know exactly, but he knows something happened.
So what do you guys
when they
think
asked
happened to him?
when they asked like about did they tell you to watch baby, he was kind of like he didn't remember that conversation.
And they said something about breakfast. But I was it Isaac or the grandfather who they said made breakfast, but then they don't even eat breakfast. So that whole breakfast, they made breakfast for the baby thing is out of the water because they don't even eat breakfast. So that leads me to believe that the baby went to the campsite. Something happened that night.
Yes.
And they took that baby somewhere. And I think, I don't know if this is this story, but didn't they meet somebody at that damn store?
I can't remember.
Wasn't there somebody, didn't they meet somebody at that store that day? I don't remember.
What were they sleeping in?
Who?
All of them, because when you look at the pictures, there's no tents or anything.
They said, okay, so Isaac said that the night that they got there slightly after sunset or around sunset. They set up camp. He slept in the tent. He had a tent that he put up. The grandfather slept in his truck. No, the grandfather slept in his camper, and Deorr and his parents slept in their truck because they were supposedly had 2 trucks.
So Isaac wasn't around. He probably was knocked out in his tent. And Grandpa was, I don't see him laying down on nobody's ground, or I barely see him sitting in a chair. So
right. So if this happened in the
why wouldn't they stay in the camper with the grandpa?
And why wouldn't you set up your tent? If Isaac was able to set up his tent, why couldn't you set up your tent?
If the baby was walking around,
right?
And if the baby was walking around already the morning of with the grandpa, why are there still no traces of his big boots?
Mm-hmm.
How do you sleep in a truck with 3 people? Even how do you sleep in a truck with 2 people rather than put your tent down or sleep in the camper with grandpa?
If you went there to camp, you had tents and you would have set up your tent. If Isaac was able to set up his tent, then Deorr's parents should have been able to set up their tent.
Because wouldn't that be the purpose of the whole trip in the first place? Wasn't the purpose of the trip to do camping with grandpa one more time? So why would you
go there to sleep in the truck if the grandfather already has a camper?
Just saying. The parents did it. I'm telling you, they did. I don't know what they did.
And that way Isaac would have known, because Isaac, he minded his own business.
Yep.
Like you said, Randy, it wasn't his responsibility to pay attention to that
child. He wasn't. So he isn't going to, really.
Because he didn't know the child. So it wasn't his responsibility to take care of that child or pay attention to what the baby was doing, other than what he saw in his kind of like his peripheral. The baby was playing. The dad got mad, because he was playing near the fire. But again, that would have been at night, because why would you need a fire during the day? They said that he made breakfast, but nobody made breakfast because you had to go to town to go get food. So if you made breakfast at the campsite,
or
go get food. Secondly, if he made breakfast at the campsite, there should have been embers of the fire even after at 12 o'clock.
Yep.
If there was a fire made in the morning, there should have been a campfire, charcoals or something, even at 12 o'clock. There would have been evidence that you made breakfast, but you went to town.
Did they check the creek? How deep was the creek?
According to the footage, not very. I mean, you had.
Is it one of those traveling
shoreline before it went? Would have gotten deeper. It wasn't just like a lake and like shoreline and just bam. It was kind of leading out,
okay,
and then kind of got deeper.
Was it one of those traveling creeks? I can't remember. That's my man.
There were a few like mini waterfalls and stuff, but it wasn't right where they were. Like you had to go into.
Because I'm just trying to figure out where his baby is not in the woods.
No,
where?
When it comes to people, and there's been some cases where people come up missing, going into the woods and they vanish. Do I think they just vanished into the woods without human intervention? Hell to the no. I don't know if this was on Crime Junkies, which I have not listened to in a long time because
I haven't listened to Crime Junkie.
I try not to listen to too many crime podcasts, even the ones that I love, because I don't want to get an idea from that and then bring it here. But there was one of the ones I listened to a while ago, it was either Crime Junkie or Case File. And it was talking about people who just vanish in the woods, like even back in the 30s and 40s, like they go up there and they just don't come back and there's no trace of them. Recently, well, in the last 20 years or so, there was a Boy Scout or something like that went into the San Bernardino Mountains. They literally turned around and he was gone. He took a picture. They found his camera. He was like 13 or 14, I think. They found his camera, but he's gone.
But they found something.
They found something. So they know, because he was there with them.
How
But
they
he wandered off and he was gone.
Research this because I want to know how.
Exactly. There's an actor, Julian Sands. He disappeared like 3 weeks ago in the San Bernardino Mountains, I believe. They have not found him.
What?
His name is Julian Sands. They have not found him. He went hiking. So sometimes I think, is there some sort of crazy phenomenon going on? I don't know. But how can someone just vanish without a trace in the woods? I don't think that's a natural phenomenon. I think there's some human something going on.
Well, there was a guy they just found him. He lived in Georgia. He was driving back to school in Auburn in the 70s, and he never made it. They never knew anything about it, but I think it was 1976 or somewhere around there. They just pulled his car out of a lake.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it took them that long. Yeah. That was without a trace. They know he left to drive from Georgia to drive to Auburn to go back to school, and they just now pulled his car out of the lake.
Even in that, there's at least a car, a vehicle to get this person. So, but just we're standing here.
Well, he was in the car.
No, but I'm just saying. But yeah. There's another factor involved. Like he's in a car and he left. It's easier to believe that someone vanished in a car than it is we're sitting here and they're gone. There was a guy in Florida. I think this happened in the 90s where he left his house and fiance, wife, whatever, could not find him, never found him. This guy was on Google Maps, Google Earth. He saw an anomaly in
his body?
Yes. He saw an anomaly in a community lake.
Wow.
He contacted the police because he's like, that's a car. From Google Earth, he said, that's a car. They find the guy that they had been looking for like 20 years, and he was in the community. Like something happened and his car, he was leaving work or a club or something. Something happened and his car veered off in there. But of course, they didn't know to look in there. And they couldn't see. So something like that, that's believable. But in this instance, no. This is the same thing. I don't believe that no one knew where
I hate stuff like this.
Casey Anthony's baby was.
Mentally, I can't deal with this. I need to know something. It is driving me insane because I'm like, where is he?
When you don't have any other suspects. Casey Anthony. Who else did it? The mama and daddy knew it.
Yep.
John Benet Ramsey. The mama and daddy did that.
The brother did it.
Madeleine McCann. Remember that little girl, the little 3-year-old that got kidnapped in Portugal? Her parents.
Oh, yeah.
Now
there's a lady saying that she's that girl.
Now, yes, I just saw that today when I was looking for vanished children.
I said,
like 2 years ago, there was that guy from like Germany or whatever who was a pedophile and a child killer.
Mm-hmm.
he was a suspect in that case. So I don't know. But again, it's really
I know
fishy.
she didn't.
It's
Well,
really
sit down.
Well, we
fishy.
also have that girl that says Aaliyah and R. Kelly's her
Okay.
parents.
Child. I was like,
Now she looked more like Flavor Flav and
than any of Leo or Kelly.
but you don't look
He may be pedo, but he's a handsome guy.
you didn't make that sound.
And
That is not
that's
you.
not it.
That is
That's
not
not
you.
it.
That is not Robert Kelly.
That
But
is not it.
like, like it's just really suspicious, especially in the Madeline McCann case. Like I've been following that for a long time. And
Me too.
I'm suspicious by nature.
Me too.
And I'm just wondering, people do this all the time where they will leave their kids in a room by themselves.
Why would you?
But why would you leave the other kids?
Yes.
Why would you leave the other kids?
I didn't understand.
Wouldn't
And I heard about this story from a
Wouldn't
Netflix
a baby be
special.
easier to transport than a 3-year-old?
I had never heard about that until I saw this Netflix special. And then when I saw that Netflix special about it, I got obsessed over that week. And my instinct was like, why did you leave him? Like, why?
People do it all the time.
What?
People do it all the time. Will
They
leave
went
their
to a
kids in a
whole nother
room.
like they're partying.
You left the 3-year-old and some babies in a room with the door unlocked.
So that y'all can check on them while they sleep.
Why wouldn't you just use your key? Why would you just use your room
I
key?
can't handle that kind of stuff. It just I'm a person of logic. I need logic.
And they're like, some gypsies did it because they prized the little blonde, blue-eyed girl. But wouldn't they prize the blonde, blue-eyed babies that were in there too? The twins that y'all had?
Blame it on the darker man.
Right.
Right.
Like it doesn't make any sense at all. There was, I don't know if you guys remember, but in Las Vegas, maybe 15 years ago or a little bit more, that guy, that young teenager, went into that little black girl's room. Her dad was gambling. He left her in the room. The guy went into the room and got her and carried her out of her room, brutalized her and killed her. She was like 8.
The one that's on the elevator? I thought that the mom sold her.
She did sell her. But no. Was that the one?
The one I'm thinking about. We may be thinking about a different one. Because the one I'm thinking about, she was a little high yellow and she also looked like some PJs. The mother sold her to the drug dealer. And he, essayed her and aped her and killed her. So I don't think we're talking about the same.
I know there was one where the mom sold her, but let me see.
Because she looked so innocent, looked like she was asleep. And he just picked up in her little pajamas and took her away.
Yeah, and there was also one where you see him holding her hand.
Okay, that's not the same one then. Because he was toting her like this. Because she was long. So he was toting her like this, and she was just holding on to his shoulder. And it looked like she had been asleep because her hair was kind of all over her head, and she looked like she had on pajamas. And they got on the elevator. This one, there was no holding her hands.
Her name was Sharice Iverson.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And let me see if this is the one. He was in high school. His name was Strohmeyer. Last name was Strohmeyer. And let me see what happened. Yeah, the dad was gambling and they made him take her off of the casino floor. And I think he went back. But he left her in the room. Okay. Yeah. He left her in the room. And yeah.
I'm looking at the pictures. See, yeah, that's not the same little girl, but I see her. She's so pretty. Uh, yeah, it's not the same little girl. It's a
Yeah.
different. Golly.
No, this one, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They were in the casino and she was just like in the arcade and he walked her out. He saw her and walked her out of there and he murdered her. But it's a case of a parent like not thinking that anything is going to happen and kind of just like losing sight of their kid and thinking that, you know, I'm just going to be back and I'll come and check. We used to do that back in the day. We used to sit in the car where our parents grocery shopped. And the rule was just don't get out the car. Or sit here until I come back. But one, we all stayed together. No one veered off. And it was a different time, you know, different time and place then. And other people paid more attention to your kids too. But this is not one of them cases. And it's just nothing is adding up. You didn't know Isaac, thought he was an alcoholic, thought he was weird, but you left him near your 2-year-old with your cancer-ridden grandfather who can't breathe. While you guys go find a new fishing spot, why wouldn't you take the baby with you?
They said they wanted some time alone.
Then, okay, so Isaac asked, why did you take the baby up there in the first place?
Yep.
And Jess said, well, he's, you know, because he's so young. And her response was, we take him everywhere with us. Why wouldn't we take him? So in that instance, if you needed some time alone, why did you take the baby?
But even in that situation, I would be, let's go take the baby to see the water. He's never been here. And that's what you usually do. You give your kids new experiences. And I would have taken look at the water and, you know, let him throw a rock in there or hit it with a stick. I wouldn't have been like leaving him alone with some rando guy and my sickly half dead grandfather.
If you were going to have Grandpa Bob watch him, put him to sleep.
Stop.
What?
I seen her face when I said half dead grandpa.
Half dead motherfucker.
Well, he was dragging one. He had more than a toe in there. He
was on the banana peel. But you would put the baby to sleep if you needed some alone time and you knew your grandfather had limited mobility. You put the child to sleep and you just say, little Deorr,
put him in the camper.
Put him in the camper. He's asleep. Because you ain't gonna do nothing but sit here in this lawn chair anyway. Go ahead and sit down and we'll be right back. But you left an active 2-year-old, not dressed properly at all for the environment. And you just let him run wild.
Knowing Grandpa can't put his shoes on by himself. Grandpa can't step in them overalls he had on. Isaac probably had to pull up the back of the man's overalls in the morning if he didn't sleep in them.
Yeah, this is
how Grandpa gonna watch a baby? Grandpa can't even breathe on his own.
Grandpa has an incontinence problem. He ain't changing no diapers because he got some of his own on.
Well, I think he peed on himself because he was nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying Grandpa can't breathe. If you can't breathe on your own, breathe.
You can't be watching no baby.
Breathe on your own. Why would you leave a kid with somebody who can't breathe on their own?
Because they planned it. What, Jackie? What?
You gonna leave your baby with a guy who drags 2 legs behind him, not 1, 2. And not only that, even if Grandpa could halfway walk, he gotta drag the oxygen tank. So you gonna leave it with? Can you imagine Grandpa running around in the pasture with that oxygen tank behind him, talking about Deorr?
It wasn't even
Grandpa.
Maybe that's who he. Maybe he thought he had Deorr. Deorr was behind him because he was dragging that oxygen tank. Maybe that's why.
But I'm saying, Grandpa didn't look like he got out that chair. He looked like he'd been in the same chair since they got to the camp out. But I'm saying, even if he was watching him, I'm talking about, why would you leave your kid with somebody who got to drag an oxygen? And I had one of them oxygen tanks, and they're really clumsy to pull behind you. Your cords is all long and you got to pull that thing and it's gravel, thing tipping.
Yeah. So, okay. 2 questions. Where do you think they killed him? And where do you think he is? Because I don't think that he is where they killed him is not where he is.
So I think they took him somewhere when they went down that mountain. Or when the dad went down the mountain to call the police. Somewhere in between them within that hour.
Then where did they kill him if there's no traces of him? Where?
Well, they said that there was 2 traces of 2 spots of blood on the truck and the wheel well and on the bumper.
Did they hit him, run him over?
You think they hit him?
Possibly. And if they did, that was an excuse to go down the hill. We got to go. But here's the thing. If you did, what did you do with him when you got there?
He was somewhere where they weren't searching for him.
Because they did, like I said, for 2 weeks, they searched the entire area. They didn't find anything. The only traces of the boy that they found were at his parents' apartment. So if he was killed at the campsite, maybe they gave...
Did they search, the police search the inside of the camper, or did they just peek in and say, we don't see him?
I don't know what the extent of that was. I'm quite sure they did search that, but maybe they gave the whole description of what he was wearing to throw them off. And he never had that jacket on. He never
just remember he had a jacket like
choice. Right. They just knew he had that jacket. So they're like, if you don't find the jacket, then of course he's missing, but then you find the jacket. So I still don't know. I don't know if I'm going with, they took him to the campsite. Something happened to him up there. I don't think he was bludgeoned or shot or stabbed. I think it was maybe it was an accident, careless accident. If they hit him with the car, if they strangled him or something like that, that they took him and then they took him back down the hill. Or maybe he wasn't even alive when they went up there. And maybe Isaac is mistaken. Maybe his memories are of something else. Because I don't understand.
Maybe Isaac was chilling in his tent and doing his own thing.
But okay, just say for instance, if Isaac is having a memory of a different time. Yes, he did see him playing. He did see him by a campfire, but it wasn't that time. Because I don't know if you're so close to your grandfather that he has an acquaintance that's that close to him that you've never met in 5 years. That's crazy. Your precious grandfather that you love so much, you spend so much time with, but you haven't met his companion of 5 years?
Math ain't math.
So maybe Isaac had a memory of a different time. I don't know. But I'm speculating.
They opened up the case. Well, they're looking at the case again.
Yeah. As of August 22, that's Klein Investigations. This is according to www.kvpi.com, in an article on that website. Klein Investigations has begun a new investigation after they previously were fired and dropped the case. So another family member has opened it up, and this is as of August. There is a Facebook page. I think it's called Deorr Kunz Jr. Faces, something like that, where it's run by the family or someone close to the family, where they said that they would only be posting, if they find something. So, if they find information, they'll find it. Because that one guy from North Carolina is still investigating. And like I said, they have the justiceforbabydeorr.com. Clearly, that is not a website run by the family, though. Because these people on here are brutal. They are not playing around. They think that they did it because they got They have like at least 2 pages on a PDF file of all these inconsistencies and questions about why they're inconsistent.
They know there's things that we do not know and they will not tell.
Right.
So
there's still, information out there. But the police are saying that this is after they found that jacket, they're like, this is most likely a homicide. And the parents are, even though they haven't been arrested, the parents, by the previous sheriff, Lynn Bloomberg or something like that, he said that they were suspects. The current sheriff is saying that they are just persons of interest. So, Lemhi County. So he's saying that they're just persons of interest, but the previous sheriff, who was acting sheriff when all this went down, was like, they're suspects. They did it. So, but there have been no arrests and no updates as of August. So, if anybody has any clues or speculations to add to ours, please do leave comments. As always, you can hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We do this every 2 weeks. You'll see new episodes on Thursdays. I
just want to shout out Shay Noy, these earrings.
What's her name?
Shay Noy, I think that's how you say it. CHAEI.
Okay.
And you can find them at the Linus Collection with the K. The K is C instead of the K. .com. So I've got a couple, more than a couple pairs from her, and she's really, really good.
Cool. Like Linus Blanket?
No, lioness, like a female lion.
Lioness, because you said Linus. You said
Girl, you
Linus.
Cheryl.
Lioness Collection. So it's www.LIONNESSKOLLECTION.
Yes.
Lioness Connection Collection.com. Not Linus.
Because I thought you said Linus.
Right. Brandy said Linus, like the blanket. Linus.
It's Cheryl, Larry, and what else? Who are the names do we say?
So it is the Lioness Collection.com to get those earrings. I really do like those, even though I typically don't wear big earrings. I just still have the same earrings on for forever. But I do like those. Those are like those are picture frames. Right?
They're picture frames.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So those are super cute.
So I just love her earrings.
Yeah, it is Black History Month, y'all. Go ahead to the lionesscollection.com, get some stuff. Also, Brandy, you have another friend, and I promise you I have to get one of this lady's bags. Like, this is bucket list type shit. The Gray Button.
The Gray Button.
Who? The Gray Button. Oh my gosh, she makes custom leather bags. She will make you a bag that fits you. She has like this layaway plan for her bag. She has ready-made bags. I mean, like, I see her stuff. I follow her on Instagram, and yes, like I think, like, if I could get one of her bags, I'd be more happy than if you gave me like some luxury designer. Like, I want one of hers. What does she call them? The bags that she custom makes for people, like with all your like memories or whatever, something that, like, the things that fit you. So like, it's kind of like you could tell her what your personality is and things that interest you, and she will paint them on the bag, and it's yours, like it's you.
She went for one that was a gift. Was it for a nurse or?
Yes,
something like that. Yeah,
like her kids did it, and it had her name on it, and like places that she liked to go, her profession. So it's totally customizable. But she has other bags. She has, it's called the graybutton.com. Y'all need to go.
All righty.
Yeah, I don't have one of the bags yet, but
I ain't got one either. But I've been looking at them for years.
It's a goal. It's a goal, and they're all handmade. And like, if you go to her Instagram page, sometimes she puts videos up of her process, so that they're individually made by that one artisan. So shop with us, especially Black women, during Black History Month. So go to the lionesscollection.com and the graybutton.com and get you a bag and get you some earrings. All right. Anything else, y'all?
No, girl.
Jackie, you good?
She
Yeah, I was
still
trying to
yet
look.
with us? Oh,
I was looking with. I was looking. I was
I
looking
was
for
like,
the
she's
gray
still
button.
yet with us?
She had holding, yeah, the gray button. Is it GRA
Okay,
or
found it.
GR.
GRE? GRE
GRE.
button.
Oh,
So GRE button.
meow, meow.
And that's on Instagram. And you can also go to thegreybutton.com so you can see the bags.
Perfect.
All right, y'all. We'll go ahead and say goodnight to y'all on this good Tuesday. It's Tuesday, and we'll see you in the episode. Will be ready on Thursday.
You choose.
Thursday. And every other Thursday, you'll see a new episode on YouTube. But again, if you have any comments, please leave them. You can also hit us up on Instagram or Facebook at Black Coffee and Crime or info@blackcoffeecrime.com. So we'll say goodnight and we'll see y'all next time.